In today's travel talk, we are going to be talking about traveling by train, pros and cons. Yes, because there are pros and cons by traveling with train in Europe. So it is an entire family experience to travel by train. And you can take along your family. And I know that because I take along my family, and it is doable by train. And yes, it is actually quite fun. We have a lot of fun, and I will go over 5 pros, 5 cons, because there are some things you need to be aware of when you are traveling by train. First of all, traveling by train is a relaxing place, a place where you can get some sleep, a place where you can work. For example, the last time I was in Brno, I took the train down there. I have an entire episode on it. I also talked about that in the last travel talk. But it is so much more than that. On my way down there, I was relaxing, but I was also catching up on a little bit of reading, which were for work. I work as a Bachelor in Science of Nursing at a psychiatric ward, and that I had to read up on some new research that has come out. And that new research, well, I could just as well read on it in the train. And I actually found out that it was relaxing because we were in these small compartments where there were only 6 seats. So at the max, there were 4 other people besides my son and I. And that made me actually, well, enjoy it a bit more and get in depth with this research paper, and it was actually quite interesting. One of the benefits there was that I had the peace and the calmness around it. I also had time to update some thumbnails for YouTube. I had time to catch up on some light personal reading. I have a novel I'm in the middle of, and at that time it was, well, time to get a little bit deeper into that novel, and I actually found it to be de-stressing, and I wouldn't have done that in a car. Yes, I might have been sitting there and relaxing in the car, but I wouldn't have gotten in depth. Even if another person was driving, I would not have relaxed the same way. And why, I cannot tell you, but that is just my personal feeling. But it was my son and I who was traveling, so we were only 2 people, and my son is not old enough to drive. He's only 14. That's not legal in Europe, and I don't wish it to be. If I were to drive down there by car, first of all, I wouldn't have been driving all day and all night. I would have been driving from early morning, and I might even reach it late in the evening, but I would have been exhausted and gotten ready for bed. Instead, I had nap time in the train. We started off at midnight, which meant that we slept all the way from Slagelse to Hamburg. Great thing, sleeping all the way down there. It was such a great thing, because when we reached Hamburg, we were to change to the train from Hamburg to Prague. Simple, just walk over there. We just rounded a kiosk and gotten some face masks, because, well, there were still a requirement to wear face mask in the train in Germany. So we just got these masks because it has to be the right ones. And then we could get on from the train from Hamburg to Prague, where we were reading, we were relaxing. We went for a stroll in the train because it was possible. We could go out of our compartment and we could walk forth and back in the train. It was actually quite great to just being able to do that. I wouldn't have done that in a car. We would have been driving for 8 to 12 hours. I would have needed to stop in around every second hour for a little bit of stretching my legs, walking around. Instead, I could do that in the train when I needed to, and I shouldn't have to wait. And if the payment machine wasn't broken, I could even have gotten something to eat and drink there. And that takes us to the next point, which is it's comfortable. It is actually quite comfortable to travel by train. I find it relaxing, I find it easy. And the awesome thing there is that I can just go down to the station. All right, my train might be delayed. All right, Hakuna Matata, no worries. We will just wait for the train. But once we get onto the train, and especially in long distance trains, they're rarely delayed. We can just go in there and we can sit down at our seat, and from there it might be 5-6 hours in the same train. Who cares? Because you're relaxing, you can do something else, and we can bond. Yes, it is socially comfortable in a way you wouldn't believe, especially if you travel with your family. And it might be a good thing to travel 6 people at the time, because when you travel 6 people at the time, you can get an entire compartment in those areas where it's 6 people compartments. In the area where there's 4 seats, 4x4 seats with a table, all right, you either need to be 4 or 8. So it is a little bit different from time to time, but seriously, you are maximum sitting with 3 to 5 other people around you, depending on which type of seating it is. In a bus, you will be sitting on rows upon rows. In an airplane, you are sitting in rows upon rows upon rows of people. There are quite a lot of people, and you cannot walk around the same way because there's no room and it is cramped. And airplane seats are, well, they try to fill in as many people as possible. And that is where we return to the comfortable things, because it's comfortable since you have leg room. I haven't been in a train currently where I didn't have leg room. I've been in trains that felt cramped, but I have never felt as cramped as I do in an airplane. I rarely fly with an airplane, and when I do, it's short flights because most of the time I feel cramped. I'm not a tall guy. I am 185 centimeters, 185 centimeters. I don't know what it is in American measurements, but nevertheless, I'm not tall, I'm average sized, and I still have a problem with too little room. And that is why I say I love trains, because I have room. I rarely have difficulty sitting there. I've been in 2 trains I can remember over the last 2 years, and I have been traveling with 5, 6, 7, 800 different train routes. I haven't counted it, but it's a lot. And I've never felt cramped. I might feel that there are a lot of people there because in some trains there are, but I never felt that I was just sitting all cramped together. And that takes us to the next point, which is that it is affordable. Yeah, it's an affordable way of travel. Traveling by train are not the cheapest ways of traveling, but I compared my travels to Brno. I was driving first class and it costed me around 117 euros. The same trip in the car I had access to, which was a Toyota Aygo, not the biggest car, it is affordable to drive in. It doesn't have that high of a payment once you reach payment roads. It's fine, but it would still have costed me around 200 to 250 euros to drive down there in the different expenses. And the big thing about my travel Supernova was it was first class. It was not crammed in second class. It was first class. Good leg room, snacks, water, free water. So yeah, it was a great experience traveling first class. And I will say this, the train from Hamburg to Prague, which was the longest running train we were on, not the best first class. The Danish first class in the ECE3 train, much better. The first class in the Railjet, better, but not where I say, oh, this is something exquisite. The better part was there was seatside service. I didn't have to go down to the restaurant wagon and to order my food. So yeah, the affordability, it was really cheap. By plane, I could have gone down there by plane, but then I had to fly to Prague, and then I had to get a train from Prague to Brno. And that could have been done for around 200 euros at the time. So yeah, it was still cheaper for those 100 and something, 15, 17 euros. And I could have done it even cheaper. I could have taken a flexibus down there. I could have done it for around 95 euros. But I do want to be in a train instead of a bus, because in the train I can relax better because there is more room for me, and that takes us back to the affordable thing. So yeah, great things. Let's move on. It is often faster than traveling by bus or car for that matter. Again, returning to my travels to Brno, I would have been able to drive the same distance by car. It was actually around the same route, because from Slagelse, where I live, I have to go over Jutland, which is where the train drives, and then I have to go down to Hamburg, by highway, and from Hamburg to Prague by highway, from Prague to Brno by highway, it would have been the exact same route. The only difference is the train drives around 150 to 180 kilometers per hour, whereas in the Toyota Aygo that I could borrow, I would have, well, maximum being able to drive around 140, and then I would have guzzled up so much gas that I would have to go into gas station every time. I might have been at a speed of around 110 due to fuel consumption and not making it overly expensive to drive down there, and I would have gotten down there much later. I would actually have needed to have an overnight stay on my way there, because it is actually quite a drive from Slagelse to the German border and then down through Germany, because it's actually quite a far stretch. And by train I didn't have to take those breaks, so I could actually, well, go down there in reasonable time and be well rested. And that takes us to the last of the pros: trains are reliable. You might hear, oh, trains are so unreliable. Yeah, my trip from Brno to Slagelse, I have also talked about this before. 2 times the train were over an hour delayed. They managed to catch up, so we were in Slagelse on the planned time. Yeah, that reliability and interconnectivity, because when the train was delayed from Prague to Berlin, where we had to change to another train, they hold back the train in Berlin and make sure that it was on the other side of the platform, so we can just walk directly over into the train in Berlin and then straight on to Hamburg, which meant that we were driving from Hamburg with a 10-minute delay instead of the, well, I would have had to find arrangement for sleeping in Berlin if we haven't made that train. That's as simple as that. And trains throughout Europe have an average on-time schedule of 90%. If we compare that to just airplanes in Europe, this is just in Europe, they have an on-time of 65%, which means that there are a big discrepancy, and by airplane you run the chance of running late. Usually by airplane you would have a direct route, at least in Europe. It is rarely that you have to change to get around in Europe. And if you do, most of the time you'll just pick another airport and then take the train the last stretch. Whereas with trains you have to connect them all together. But there are benefits of that. Because when I have a plane ticket and it is delayed but I have to reach a train, they don't have to find me another train. I just have to buy another ticket and pay for that. Whereas if I have bought the entire train trip through my, well, in Denmark it's DSB, but I bought it through a company, they are obligated to make sure that I get the entire stretch. So when I drive through Germany, it is a Deutsche Bahn, a DB, that has the obligation to make sure that if I don't reach my train, they have to find out what to do. And when I reach Prague, it's České dráhy that has that obligation on behalf of DSB. And if I buy the train ticket through České dráhy, it's DSB in Denmark, it's Deutsche Bahn in Germany, and České dráhy in the Czech Republic. So yeah, there are many great things about train travel, and when something is too delayed for you to be able to reach the next train, they have to either make sure you get on another train or give you accommodation and new train tickets for the next day. Usually some of the trains, they arrive at around midnight at a station, and then there are just that 6 hours until the next train. With that 6 hours, they are obligated to make sure that you get an overnight stay. That's common throughout the European Union because that is law implemented by the European Union. Moving on to the cons, because a train trip through Europe can feel long and exhausted. Yeah, it is exhausting to drive train that far. But imagine driving a car the same route. It is overly exhausting. So yeah, it might be exhausting to drive a train down through Europe, but well, it is rarely that exhausting. Most of the time, and most people I know who drive trains around, they actually feel more well at ease and more well rested when they reach their destination. And that is one of the most important things to take along, is that, well, The exhausting part is only the first couple of times you are driving train. As you learn to drive more trains and as you learn to travel by train, you are moving from it's exhausting to, oh, I'm well rested, I'm ready to go out and explore the town as soon as I arrive. Just go to the hotel, throw out the bags, throw in the bags in the hotel, not throw them out. It would be a bad thing to throw out the bags, but throw in the bags and then get out and explore that city you're in. You will rarely find that by people who have driven there by car. Then I have driven on many car vacations, especially in my 20s. And at the time, I had my girlfriend and my son with me, and we reached that. And as the man of the house, I was driving the car. It was, well, our way. I know not all families do that, but it was our way. So I drove most of the time. I drove down through Germany because my girlfriend at the time, she didn't like to drive on the Autobahn because they are driving like maniacs sometimes. That is when we switched to the train. I have also switched girlfriends since then, but never mind. And that switch to the train gave us a new, well, energy when we reached our destinations, because in car I was totally done for when we reached the destination. I just had to go in and take a nap no matter where we reached. Whereas when we moved to the trains the first couple of times, yes, we were exhausted. We were all exhausted, but now this summer where I was in Brno with my son, when we arrived, the first thing we did was go to the hotel, throw in the bag, go into the city and explore the city. I would never have done that if I were driving a car. So yeah, exhausting, it is the first step, but you will learn to cope with it as you take the trains more and more. As with any form of transport, you might experience problems, and there might be train problems. And I have chosen this picture for one reason. That is a train problem I had on a vacation a couple of years back, where I was traveling down through Germany and down into Poland. And in Poland, we were sitting in the train. We thought we were sitting in the right wagon. And when I stuck out my head to see why weren't we moving, it was 10 minutes ago we were supposed to be moving. I was looking behind the train and I just laughed my guts out because the wagon we should have been in was detached and had driven away, so we were just holding on the platform and sitting there and thinking, how do we get on from here? And that is why I say I have chosen this picture, because it's a funny little thing. But you will experience problems. If you take airplanes, you will experience delays, you will experience cancellations. If you take trains, it's the same thing. Buses, you will experience they are stuck in traffic, they are getting delayed upon delayed upon delayed. In cars, you might break down. But it is, you might experience problem. It is not that you will experience a problem. And if you expect a problem, there will be a problem. If you say, oh, we have made this bummer, how do we fix that? The problem starts to become an exploration journey, a part of the adventure. And you can turn it around. That is one of the things that you can turn it around. And that takes us to the next thing. You're not alone. You will never be alone on a train. But this is a pro and a con at the same time, because you are not the only one who makes a mistake. There's always someone there to help you. And if you look totally lost, there's always someone coming up to you. Hey, oh, can I help you? And there's always staff at the stations that can help you. On the bigger stations, on the smaller stations, you might run into a little bit of problem with staff. But then I find friendly locals who can help me. That's also why I'm in the middle of learning Polish, because I want to travel to Poland with my camera. I want to experience Poland with a camera with me and going down there and meet the people. So once I am proficient enough in Polish, I will travel down there and take you along. But yeah, you're not alone, and for some people that's a problem. It might be a problem when you sit in an overcrowded compartment where all seats are taken and people are standing in the aisle. Take it as part of the adventure. I take it as part of the adventure, and the few times I'm experiencing it more in Denmark than I do in other countries. It might be the time of year I'm traveling, or it might be the way I'm traveling. I don't know, and I really don't care, because I just take it as part of the adventure. If you don't like people around you, you might be better suited to take a car. But you will also get this challenge from being around all these people. I am not the one who go out there and are socialite. I'm not a socialite. I am introvert for the most part. And that is one thing I've learned to deal with, is to take the train, because that, well, I have learned to go up to people and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, can you help me?" I have learned to go up to people and say, "Oh, you have that right facial feature. I would like to take a picture of you for my social media because I do this, this, and this." And then I show them my social media and I show what I do. And that is also what brings, well, an open-mindedness from people. And I've learned that through train travel. That not all places are accessible by train. I've taken this picture because it is an island I was traveling to, and that island is not accessible by train in no way at all. It is not even a bus driving out there. So you drive out the bus, getting fairly close to it, and then you walk. Of course, that would be easier in a car, but I wouldn't have found this view. I wouldn't have found another great view of the entire stretch if I just took my car all the way out there. So by taking the train to the station, by then changing into the bus and taking the bus as far up there as I could get, and then walking the rest of the way, I actually got some great experiences. I even got to bathe a little bit. So yeah, the train will not take you all the way there, but take it as part of the journey. That is my message throughout all of this, that these accounts can be turned into something positive. And then there are the risk of theft. I have never experienced anyone stealing from me on a train. But there are the risk. I've heard of people getting their bags stolen, but alright, there are many ways to do it. And on some trains you can lock the compartment you're in if you're having a sleeper train. On other trains, well, there are so many people there that a thief will not steal from it. Most of the time when I have experienced something close to theft or other people getting something stolen, it's on stations. So make sure that you have something great to keep your belongings close to you, in front of you. And I will cover that in an entire video on YouTube where I talk about how to protect yourself against pickpockets. Because there are several ways to do so, but that requires an entire episode. For now, just know that to keep your things safe, keep them in front of you, keep them within your arms. Especially phone, money. If they steal your underwear, you will manage. It's possible to buy underwear. If they steal your passport, your phone, and your money, you are a bit screwed out there. And it is that I want to talk to you about. That you can protect yourself, you can mitigate the chance of theft. Of course, I've heard of people getting their bags stolen, I've heard that some have even gotten their entire luggage in a luggage rack. They have taken all the bags there. But then again, I have heard about it. I have never experienced anything like that. I once experienced someone trying to grab a bag from a luggage rack, and the entire train compartment reacted to it. So he just placed it back and run out the train at the next station. So there's also some unspoken bond between train travelers to raise your voice, say something if someone is trying to steal from another. And you will get support if you just yell out, "Stop the thief," or "Stop this," and you will get a reaction because there's always people around. So you can mitigate that. And on that final note, I just want to end and wish you great travels by train out there. And if you're interested in knowing more, my YouTube channel has a lot more to offer about the experiences you can experience in Copenhagen. And I will of course also be covering more about train travels as time goes on. But for now, I'm in the middle of recording some great episodes about museums you should visit in Copenhagen, and you can find them on my YouTube channel. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I have a link somewhere on the screen. Click that and you will get directly to another great video.